I actually have a philosophical problem with the willful downplaying of COVID-19 by a lot of people for partisan purposes because it actually is a deadly virus. The fatality rate is higher than the flu. It spreads more readily than the flu. It has the potential to overwhelm hospitals. And I think there are a lot of people who want to play it down, and a lot of the people who want to play it down are playing it down for partisan purposes. I also have a philosophical problem with the people who have amplified it extraordinarily higher than it should be for partisan purposes. Just as there are people downplaying it for partisan purposes, there are people amplifying it for partisan purposes. There are people who see the polling that the president of the United States is suffering in the polls because the public doesn't like his handling of the virus. And the media, in turn, then has decided to amplify, just blow up the coverage of the virus. Y'all, we literally this year had the Pentagon confirm that they have made contact with, in some capacity, extraterrestrial flying objects. And that story was on like the back page of the newspaper so the media could push panic porn about the virus. The virus is serious. It has overwhelmed hospitals in New York and New Jersey and Connecticut, where deaths have been just overwhelming. But the media has instead chosen to fixate on Florida, Georgia, and Arizona and Texas, states with Republican governors, disproportionately exaggerating the effects of the virus in those states to downplay the virus in areas with Democratic governors. That right there suggests a partisan motivation by the press, not the president. I think there are things the president could have and should have done differently, and had he done them, he would be better off in the polls right now. I think, for example, the president could have let Dr. Fauci and the vice president just lead point and stayed off the stage and let them manage things. I think the president could have given clearer direction and not sent so many mixed messages. There are a lot of things I think the president could have done differently, and I only raise those right now because whenever I say that, a lot of people say, there's nothing he could have done. Give me examples. Those are some of the examples. But I also think philosophically, the president of the United States telling people don't be afraid of COVID is a smart and wise thing to do because there are some people living in abject panic. I have neighbors who for months have left their groceries in their car except for the frozen stuff, and they've carried that stuff in with nitrile gloves and sprayed it all down with bleach before putting it in their freezer. My wife has lung cancer. She has a 25% chance of dying should she get this virus, according to her doctor. We didn't do that stuff. The idea that you need to live in fear because of the virus, that it's okay to be afraid of the virus, you should not live in fear. And part of the problem that we have in this country right now is that both sides, partisan sides, are living in fear of each other. And when you have an American media that goes out there and says, fear the virus, oh my gosh, we're all going to die. No, you're not. In fact, the data shows that overwhelmingly, you're not going to die. In fact, the younger you are, the better off you are. In fact, if you're a senior citizen, you still have a remarkable chance of being virus-free or getting the virus and surviving. But they would have you believe you've got to you gotta be scared. You've got to somehow be freaked out. You've got to somehow you've got to live your life afraid and in your house and isolated, and you can't get out of your house. You're not allowed to go anywhere. And if you do go anywhere, you've got to wear a biohazard suit. There is balance in life. There is balance in dealing with the virus. I think it is smart to wear masks, and I think that I have friends who are willfully dismissive of masks and obfuscate on the science and data about masks and have a lot of crackpot sites. I mean, the anti-mask people, in my mind, are very much akin to the anti-vaccine people at this point. And I'm sorry to my friends whose feelings I just hurt by saying that, but I think the science at this point, the data is actually fairly compelling that they do work. But the president of the United States stood on a balcony by himself with no one around outside. They're calling the Amy Coney Barrett outside event a super spreader event, when in fact it appears that the people who got the virus there were all inside not wearing masks beforehand. And they totally want to misrepresent that. I mean, it's like the fear porn of the media when they show the exaggerated zoom lens shots of people on the beach claiming that the beaches are crowded. We can't actually find cases of the virus spreading on beaches in Jacksonville, Florida, where the media highlighted, oh my gosh, they've opened the beaches in Jacksonville, Florida. The crowds are there. We're all going to die. We can't actually contact trace any cases of the virus in Florida coming from people going to the beach, getting vitamin D while the wind is blowing in saltwater air, killing the virus as it spreads. We can't find it. The very same media that hasn't wanted you to be on the beach has been perfectly fine with you being in a large maskless crowd protesting because it's your moral obligation to be anti-racist. Apparently, the virus fears anti-racists. People have lost their damn minds. The president of the United States doesn't think you should live in fear of the virus. I don't think you should live in fear of the virus. You shouldn't live in fear, period. There is no sense in you living in fear of a virus. Should you take precautions? Yes. Should you be cautious? Yes. Should you do what you can to prevent yourself from getting the virus? Yes. Should you be responsible? Yes. Responsibility does not come in response to fear. Responsibility comes in response to common sense. And when you fear something, your common sense tends to go away and you behave irrational. Living in fear actually causes you to behave irrationally and irresponsible. Living in fear causes you to do stupid things you should not do when other people tell you otherwise. I've got a friend right now who's making some terrible life choices because he got bad advice that put him in a state of panic. If he got better advice, he'd be making better, more common sense, rational, responsible decisions. Living in fear of this virus, you can't see the virus and you fear what you cannot see. And I understand people who are a little bit freaked out that there's this contagion flying around in the air that you could inhale and it could get you sick. And the odds are if it gets you sick, you're going to get treatment. Do you know, I just had multiple family members get this virus. I haven't wanted to talk about it on the air for their privacy. One of them had to be in the hospital for a week. Is recovering. Went in the hospital, got a treatment, came home, is recovering. I know people who died from this virus. I actually know probably 6 or 7 people at this point who died of this virus, including Herman Cain. And I know the conspirators out there like, oh, well, no, he had actually an underlying condition and he died of the underlying condition. No, he would still be alive, but for the virus. That's the test. But for the virus, he would still be alive. It is the virus that caused his demise. I have an aunt. I have other friends. I've got people I know who have died of this virus. It's not worth living in fear of this virus. Again, when you are scared of something, you tend to make irrational, irresponsible decisions. You tend to leave your frozen goods outside on the stoop while you go get your Clorox bleach and wipe it all down and bleach your clothes and ruin your food. There is genuinely no reason for anyone to panic, for anyone to fear. To have the media tell you, it's okay to be scared, it's okay to fear. No, live by faith, not by fear. And to berate the president of the United States for returning home from a hospital, going up a balcony where there is literally not a single other person and taking off his mask, and that is some sort of awful, terrible, terrible thing that he did, shows you the level of brokenness we have right now, the level of partisanship we have right now, the level of irrational coverage of this virus. And you know what's going to happen? You're going to have more people treat it less seriously than they should because of the collective media freakout of a septuagenarian standing on a balcony with no one around outside without a mask on and daring people to say, having had the virus, don't be afraid of it. We live in a broken world, and the media is highly, highly indicative of it. The media is an example of the brokenness. Y'all, we've got compelling good data on this virus now. We know how to fight it. We know how it transmits. We know the odds. We know the science. There's no reason to be scared of it. Take precautions. Be responsible. Exercise common sense. But don't give in to the panic that the media apparently wants you to give into.